So I'm on my back porch today, and yes, I'm enjoying the clouds of pollen floating my way, but I'm also enjoying the way that things are filling in. You know, when I'm driving through the mountains, and I've been on a couple hikes this week. My goal is to get on 3 hikes a week to kind of rediscover all the pieces, the trails that were lost in the storm. I want to see how they're built back up again, but I'm enjoying to see how things fill back in. Now, it's an illusion. You know, I know this. I know what's underneath all of those leaves, but it's nice to see the mountains heal. And there are parts of the mountain here in Appalachia where the trees are still standing, but they were completely stripped of their branches. And so, you know, there's no spring on those parts of the mountain, and I have to appreciate what I can take, you know, as I get it. It's not why I'm talking to you, but I'm just taking a moment to enjoy the beauty around me. Tonight is the new moon in Taurus, and I will say this, like I'm a Taurus rising, and I really do appreciate the energy of this moon because it's all about drive and moving forward and making decisions and ambition and all of those really great, modalities, none of the shadow properties that come with being a Taurus. But at the same time, there's an edge to this moon. And I wanted to talk about it because we're still not out of that Mars and Leo transit. Of course, we're still in Pluto and Aquarius. We're going to be there for the next 20 years, kind of like off and on. But the lessons that I was talking about in the last reading that I had are still in play, but this is the bookend. This is where you're like kind of meant to, you've experienced in the past week the energy of Mars and Leo, which is where everything around your family life and your friends kind of get tossed up in the air, and you are forced to call boundaries, verbal boundaries with everybody. You will be experiencing conflict, Mars, conflict. But in the Leo archetype, you're meant to not ghost people and be like, y'all are fucking toxic, I'm not going to do this anymore. You're meant to say, hey, this is not fair to me. I don't like it. I don't like where this is going. I'm out. I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to support you in this chapter that you're in. I'm no longer going to be here anymore. Or you just tell them to fuck off. If they keep crossing your boundaries, then they got to go. But the new moon in Taurus is all about getting real about you, getting real about what you want, and getting rid of what's standing in the way, even if it's you, okay? And so, if you have experienced all the conflict that you have needed to see, and if you put down the verbal boundaries with people, like line in the sand, this is where you don't step forward, and if you've been really good about that, then this is going to be the opportunity where you get to co-create something new, but you can't bring your trauma with you. And I was actually doing some meditation this morning, and I heard from my spirit guides, and I wrote it down. You cannot co-create a new life while clinging to your trauma. That is so specific. You cannot do that because the way that you saw things being done in your family or your friend group, or, it's like when you were a kid and the way that you saw people fighting or conflict or any of that, that doesn't work for you, and you can't bring any of that with you. And that is the tone, I would say, of this moon. Now, I took a couple other notes as well. Tradition versus your comfort zone. Tradition is the way that you are used to doing things, and versus your comfort zone tells me that the two are squared. They're facing each other. One cannot happen with the other anymore. You have to come up with a new way of doing things. So that said, if you have experienced the confrontation, and if you put down the verbal boundaries, you have to now create the new reality by which you live your life, and the people have around their expectations about what your connection is going to be to them. The piece that you need is going to be, it's going to take fighting for at this point. So if you called your boundaries, you're still going to have to do some work around the piece that you're asking for. And you have to speak up. There is no longer any room to shrink into the past versions of yourself. No coping mechanisms, like no room for the way of like trauma responses or the way that you've done things in the past. There's no room for that. There's too much like forward movement happening in the solar system at this point for you to go back into, and I know I just like made a massive sweeping generalization, but my point being is that you cannot do things the way that you've been doing them if you want to move forward. You have to chuck the way that you've done it and leave it in the past. And even if those people come back and are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like this is great. If you want to bring them back into your ether, you can say, hey, it's cool, but this is the way that I'm doing things now. Tonight is about setting that expectation in doing so. So I pulled a couple cards and I wanted to read them, but I love the fact that all of the cards that I read today, they're from the pagan otherworlds. They're all major arcana, which tells me that this is a big life theme that you're dealing with today. First, strength. If you look at this card, she is kind of comforting, controlling a bear and where it's going, but strength is about standing in your power and like holding on to like, if you say, this is my boundary, you have to stick to the boundary, and that takes strength. This is, and I'm saying this is being done in a way you've never done it before, so you have to stay consistent. Your challenge is going to be being kind to yourself throughout this though, because I'm sure that if you have a family system or a friend group that is this chaotic that you had to hold boundaries with, that they will find other ways to test your boundaries and to chip away at whatever decision that you tried to make. Temperance is about you holding space for yourself, absolutely nobody else, but you have to give yourself the time to come into this energy and be kind to yourself as this happens. Temperance is about taking the time that you need to get things done. I'm not saying use this as an excuse to draw out this lesson, because Mars is going to leave Leo and go into another sign eventually. This is the time to learn that lesson, but be kind to yourself along the way. Now the outcome, I threw 2 cards and they're fucking like marvelous, and exactly what I was talking about is the sun and the star. These are the 2 cards that came up. The sun is about stepping into your authenticity. It's about standing in the sun and like, you know, and saying, being very transparent, this is what I want. And then the star is actually what you want. It is about the dream, the utopia, the oasis that you are creating by leaving this chaos behind. Having these 2 hand in hand means exactly what I was saying, is that the peace that you need will take fighting for, and you need to speak up. And then you need to, there's no more room to shrink into the past versions of yourself. You have to, in order to get what you want and what you need, you have to face what's standing in the way. What is standing in your way? Is it you? Is it a person? Is it an energy? And you need to clear it immediately. And to just kind of sum this up with, oh my gosh, pollen's falling on me everywhere. To sum this up with what my guides said this morning, you cannot co-create a life while clinging to your trauma. It is going to be very clear today exactly what that means to you, and it's different for everybody. But I wish you luck, because you know this is a new way, and I want you to not look at this as a traumatic experience that you have to like find another way to cope. This is helping you like build you to be the better person who you're meant to be. You have to leave versions of yourself behind. And that means, as I was saying in my last video, you may have to leave people behind in order to come into your truth in a deeper and more authentic way. All right. Have an amazing Sunday. Enjoy this gorgeous weather that we're having. And good luck.